and welcome to Family Based Solutions SF24 workshop. And we are really lucky today that we have some volunteer parents who's going to talk about how the solution focus approach has been useful to them. And I'm going to pass it over to Joe. But before I do that, if you do have any questions for any of the parents that might support in your practice or general questions, then please do put it in the chat or raise your hand. Where is the hand on the reactions? Joe.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know us, so we're from Family Based Solutions. So we're a charity in North London. We work with families mainly, sometimes individuals, but generally with families, where there may be some conflict. And we've been using solution focus since 2014, with some success, but not always. But we've found that it's, for us, it was the best fit. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to the parents that have joined us. And hopefully sharing their thoughts on how the approach has been useful to them, and maybe how it could be better or hasn't been useful, where its limitations are, because the client, as we know, is the expert. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for agreeing to this, you crazy people. So do you want to tell us a bit about yourselves? Should we start with oh, hang on. Should we start with Wonder Woman? No? Superwoman.
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I don't know what to say about me. I'm me. I don't know. I've been working with you guys you've been working with me rather for a year, working together with my family, and it's been interesting. I have a small person in the background. As she said, it's been very interesting. Yeah, I've learnt lots. Some of it's been oh shush. Interesting as in different. I think it's a very different approach to what I've ever come across before. I think is the only way to say it.
Great. We'll come back to that difference, because I think that's quite important. Superwoman, you're next to my screen.
I actually live in New Zealand, so I'm not UK based, but I've been incredibly blessed to have been given this opportunity for FBS to work with me and my family. I am here as a grandparent. I have my 12-year-old grandson living with me. I'm raising him, and yeah, that doesn't happen because there are no challenges in the family. So yeah, so it's been really eye-opening working with FBS, and I think there have been a lot of changes in my family situation because of it. And I think, I don't know, Aisha and Joe, has it been 5 months, 6 months? I don't know. It's been this year that we've been together. Yeah. And that's me.
Oh, Black Widow's next on my screen.
Well, our journey has been over 3 years. I think it might be coming up to 4 years. 4 years, yeah. I think.
Oh, she doesn't think much of us. Or the solution focus approach. Shall we go over to Tony Stark? Mr. Stark.
Hi, I am Mr. Stark today. I am an ex foster child, which has joined family-based solutions because I like their approach. They're very non-judgmental, voluntary scheme, I can call it. I actually love these two beanheads. Yeah, I'm very passionate at times, but I have a very big sense of humor, so don't take it too serious. That's me.
Fab. Shall we go back to you, Kirsty? Can't
Yeah,
remember you were Black Widow, weren't you? Go on.
yeah, I've joined with my phone now because the laptop was playing up. But no, the difference with family-based solutions is that they've been with us the whole way along. They haven't withdrawn the support. There's so many agencies out there that will come in and try and fix individual parts of the family, but when their job's done, they withdraw and you're left on your own. But family-based solutions have been there the whole way along. They've helped with the children individually, but they've helped with us as a family as a whole, and they've also not stopped being there for me as a parent. And it's been a long journey, but there's definitely been so many improvements along the way because of that continued support.
And can I just reiterate what I said? You don't need to big up family-based solutions, guys. We are here to talk about the SF approach, but we do appreciate it. And
But
we
they're
treat you so
entwined as
nicely
well.
for it. Sorry?
They're very heavily entwined. You know, it's family-based solutions that have taught our family how to use the solution-focused, techniques and that.
Okay, fair enough.
But
And
also how to be a family.
well, you are part of the family, all of you, aren't you? Shall we start with you, Superwoman, and talking about, so we deliver solution-focused workshops for parents, which is a 4-week workshops, and parents have the option of coming back if they wish to, and Superwoman has been back several times. I haven't actually named her as a volunteer in the groups, but she does do a lot of volunteering in the groups because she knows the drill, she knows how it works, and it basically works like this. I don't know what conversation we're going to have until the parents join. We don't pre-plan it because otherwise we wouldn't be client-led, but we do have an idea of exploring best hopes and what's been better since we last met. And if they have been facing any challenges, what is it that we can do as a team in those workshops to help that person try to overcome them? So we all work together. It's not about me telling people what to do or teaching solution-focused approach. It's just hosting a room and I just drop in solution-focused questions here and there and they go for it. So, I mean, Superwoman, how have those, because we're having this discussion to see how other practitioners might be able to take this on board with their clients, and how has this, the workshops been useful to you?
They've been a godsend, actually. They're 1 hour a week where I get to focus on what's important for my family and where there have been issues, because there have been many and there still are issues, to be able to hear other parents who are dealing with the same issues, who are facing the same things, is just unbelievably comforting. Not because you want them to be going through bad things too, but because suddenly I realized that I wasn't alone. Child to parent abuse carries a lot of shame with it and a lot of judgment from a lot of professionals and other people. And so in the groups, there was none of that. I could talk about what the real issues were, and I learned so many skills and strategies which have made a huge difference in our lives. and it's not just making a difference in our lives at home, it's making a difference now in our community, and that just, yeah, that brings me a lot of joy.
And there's something else that you discovered on Facebook, didn't you, Superwoman?
Yeah. So I came across this amazing writing from a woman who I'd never met. Butterflies with Rainbows is the name of it on Facebook, and there were some things that were there that really touched my heart, and there were some things that I was in a particularly dark place and didn't know that, you know, I wanted to carry on. And I read some things from Butterflies with Rainbows, and it just made a huge difference for me. And I private messaged to say thank you. And yeah, she's an amazing woman with an amazing ability
Don't say that to her.
with an amazing ability to share what people need to hear.
And Butterflies with Rainbows also volunteering for family-based solutions, and I will reveal the author in a minute. And the way that she works with family-based solutions, she is a service user, and so is her family, is I will come across a parent and I may not know how to get through to them, so I'll ask her to write a blog about it, because she has a lot of personal experiences where she would know the answers, because I've never been through domestic abuse. I have never been through child-to-parent abuse, but she has. So she knows exactly well, not exactly, but she'll have a better idea of what that person may be going through. And would the author like to reveal herself?
That'll be me.
So, and we're going to move on to Black Widow and Tony Stark in a minute, but is it okay for you to kind of talk about how Butterflies and Rainbows was born? Because I know when we first met, it was one of your best hopes.
It was, although it wasn't, Butterflies with Rainbows wasn't my best hope. Just being able to write was my best hope. Butterflies with Rainbows kind of emerged from that, if that makes sense. But just to be able to write things down in a way that would help others, and was something that I wanted to be able to do. I'm not the best person at being able to talk about how things make you feel, and sometimes I'm not the best person at being able to talk to other people about how they're feeling, but I can write to them and I can write things down, and I kind of know that sometimes, but it's something that I found really early on when we were working together, that I would be able to write down things. So it was about working together and how that would work, and kind of Butterflies with Rainbows kind of emerged from that, really. It's been tweaked a bit over the months and has evolved slightly, a lot. But yeah, now Aish just tells me things and I write about them. But I write about a lot of other things too.
So you tap into your client's strengths and then you use and abuse it if it's something that will help other families. And I'm very open and honest with that. I will utilize your skills. And the other good thing about Catherine is that Wonder Woman, is she loves to read. So when there is a new solution focused book out, I will pass her the book and say, I don't have time, would you? And she will read it and she will summarize it for me. And by doing that, I'm asking Catherine to do a little bit of self-help, as well as me being lazy, not wanting to read. So it's a tick box for both. But yeah, we didn't just work on having verbal communication. I would sometimes ask questions in a meeting that I would have with Catherine. Oh, everyone knows your name, Catherine. And then and then she would kind of text me what her thoughts were afterwards. So what her best hope is, where she's on the scale, whatever it might be. And I knew to allow her that time. So it's kind of getting to know your client and how they respond to the questions. But how has this the actual solution focused approach helped you and your family, Catherine?
I think in lots of different ways. It's given us, do you know what I think the biggest thing is? We talk. We actually talk to each other and we listen. But not just listening to the words, we actually we kind of listen to how we're behaving, if that makes sense. It's not just listening to one of us saying we're fine, we're fine, we're fine. We're actually like listening to the types of music the kids are listening to really shows on how they're feeling, or they listen, or even vice versa, if they'll listen out for other non-verbal cues. It kind of just opens up so much more communication between us, which we never ever had beforehand.
And how has it helped your nurses? Yeah, I went there. Would you like to give an example, Catherine? And you know what I'm talking about.
No, because I know what example you're talking about. So it's helping a lot of my nurses at the moment in just making them a bit more self-aware of themselves and promoting themselves at work in setting, I don't know how to explain it now.
Well, the way that you're speaking with the kids and using the scales.
Yeah, so I've started using the scales, but also I've started using the scales with my nurses at work about their confidence, scaling their confidence with how they're feeling and what we can do to improve it. You're putting me on the spot now.
Sorry, I'll come back to you. And what about you, Tony Stark?
What about me?
Well, God, I've got to take a step back. What about me? What is it that you would like to say about the approach?
Oh, the approach. I think the approach, you know, the non-judgmental approach here is very important. Like, because like you can have, all right, everybody's got a past, isn't it? Like some people are young when they're doing their rude boy stuff, and excuse my dialogue right now, because I actually grew up in Tottenham, so I'm gonna have that kind of street mentality. But yeah, everyone's got a different approach to life and stuff. So people have history, and if you're reading off of paper, you're gonna make your it's only natural that you judge people when you're reading about them off paper. But what is hard is to not judge people off of what you read and try and take them as you see them, or how they act towards you, if you get what I'm saying. So yeah, the non-judgmental approach is very important when reading about someone, even if, you know, some people get like emotionally attached to stories and people, and it is hard at times, isn't it, to not have that little attachment of feelings. It's only feelings, isn't it? But just don't get too attached, and just try and not judge when you're reading about a person or a family. That's what I can say. That's mostly important, to be honest.
Can I just ask, because Catherine and Tony, you were kind of forced in a way to work with an organisation. It wasn't something, I think Catherine was telling me the other day, and I know Tony wasn't either. It wasn't something you volunteered for. Let's put it that way. So that first initial interaction, what was it about that interaction that made you decide I'm actually going to stick with it and give it a go? Because I think that's really important.
So Catherine, if you don't mind me going first.
No,
This
that's
is
fine.
exactly what I was saying. Like, meeting you guys, I'm sorry, yeah. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? At the beginning, first meeting, I'm like sitting duck. But once after I started interacting, I was like, oh, these lot are quite cool, you know, like they're actually humans. They're not, because you know, some people, you meet people and they're just like, oh, they've already judged you, they've read your file or whatever, and they're like, you know what? He's a madman, he's aggressive, he's just always going to be having attitude. When it's not really the case. Like, I'm a person, I'd give as much as I get. If I'm getting attitude, I can give attitude. If I'm getting respect, I can give 10 times the respect. So yeah, I was just happy with the way you lot, your approach. And again, your judgment.
It's
Catherine?
so funny, Tony.
I think with me, it was that initial phone call that I had. I was kind of like, it was worth the shot. But I was in that position where I was so angry at every other service that had let me down. And I think I'd actually voiced that to you on the phone.
You're just another service that's going to let me down.
Yeah, I was really cross when you made that first phone call to me. I can kind of remember that one. Like, everyone had let me down. I think I remember I had been like referred to so many people and told that I had to be seen by so many people. And I'd been through all these different assessments and everything, and been told, you don't meet the criteria, you don't meet our criteria, we can't help you. That, to be fair, by the time I'd received your phone call, I'd had enough. So when I kind of got the phone call saying we can help you, I'd kind of given up. And I didn't want to talk about why I'd been referred. I'd had enough of that. I didn't want to talk about the situation I was in. My only interest was how I was going to get out of it. And I kind of said that that's all she cared about as well. So I was like, okay, I'll give you a chance. But in my head, I was like, if you mess this up, I'm done. But yeah, it was one of those ones where I basically didn't have a choice, but I did have a choice. But at the same time, I knew that if I didn't give you guys a chance, I had no other options. So yeah, I'm still here today.
You are. And I mean, what was it like going through assessments, I suppose? What was different about the way you spoke with Aish that felt different, and something that you thought, I may as well go with it?
She said sorry.
Ah, okay. She doesn't say that to me. What's going on here? Okay, so right. And you said something interesting. I think in our area of work, especially with families. We have families that may have had 6 or 7. It's almost like a revolving door, and I think you're right. I think people get fatigued. So that I guess there's something about this way of working where we don't do that assessment, and you don't have to repeat everything that you've repeated already 100 times. Was something that was refreshing for you, I guess.
Yeah.
Black Widow. You weren't false, or was you? I don't know.
No, but I wasn't referred to you, and I wasn't forced upon you. However, one of the therapists that had done some training with you, Bianca, is a friend of mine through church, and she had discovered what a tough time I was having, and she kept saying, you need to contact these guys. You need to contact them. They can help you. And so I came, and I was welcomed, and I wasn't judged, and I was supported, and that made the difference, because we've had social services involved. We've had loads of different services involved with us, and all these different services are very, very good at identifying the problems, and that's it. They leave you with the problems. Whereas I'd had enough of going around in circles. I wanted things to get better, and that's what the solution focused approach has done for us. It's helped us communicate as a family, to listen. So sometimes my children are never going to be cured. We're always going to have issues and problems going on, and they're not very good at communicating with me and telling me, saying, hey, this is wrong. So I really have to tune in with them and listen to the signals that they're giving off, and interpret them, and put things in place to support them and to help us move forward. And there was a time when I came to you where I genuinely thought I couldn't do it, and it was the end of the road. But now I find myself chanting under my breath in those moments. I don't feel like I can do this, but I know I can do this. I'm pushing forward. And sometimes I haven't got the strength in me to solve it all in one night. So sometimes we just have to go into survival mode while I, recuperate. And then, a couple of days later, I'm thinking, right, this is an issue, but we need to get to a point where it's not an issue. So what do I have to do to make it not an issue? And I have to think outside the box. And the solution focused approach is what drives me with that. It's not focusing on the problems, it's how we can solve the problems.
And that's why you're a volunteer, Black Widow. And for any social workers or any professionals out there that work with families, if you were to kind of say to them, look, we were in the system, some of us still are in the system. This is what is useful when you are working with families. What might that be? What advice might that be to them? Anyone just jump in.
Don't run away when they cry.
Yeah, can I just quickly explain that, Catherine?
Go on.
So Catherine has, there's a social worker for the children who, if Catherine's feeling emotional, which is quite normal, there's a lot happening, she wouldn't know how to manage it. So she would say, stop crying, just stop crying. And then she'd phone me to say, she's crying and I don't know what to do. So I had to have a conversation with her to say, well, actually, that's an issue that you have, and maybe I need to support you. Because, adults will cry when things are overwhelming, or when they're happy, they will cry. But I think Catherine and I started in the end to make a joke of it, rather than, because Catherine was getting quite frustrated with that, weren't you? And then we just kind of agreed to just feel sorry for the social worker, really, and just kind of get on with it. So kind of coping with things that are outside of our control, which is her not being able to deal with someone crying. So yeah, that's good advice.
I think for us, the social workers, it was, like I said, they were really good. They had a huge list of issues and problems, but when it came to solving these problems so that they were no longer problems, they kind of drew a blank. And so they'd be very good at saying, well, we'll refer you to this parenting class, or we'll refer you to that parenting class. But actually they weren't very good at listening. I think people need to take some time and to listen, to try and understand why there's issues and why there's problems. And not just leaving you with a problem, leaving you with some sort of hope or something to work towards.
I also think with social workers, they don't seem to understand that when you're working with a family who has never been allowed to make a decision, you then have the expectation to turn around and go, well, tell us what you need. It's like you don't have that ability. So it also makes it very difficult to have those conversations with people. So that's a really hard question, I think, to be asking of somebody who just can't make that decision straight away. And it can cause so much tension in conversations between social workers and families. So being able to kind of iron that one out in any other way, like even if it's a case of these are your options, what do you need from these, to sort of simplify it a little bit. Does that make sense? Like, just so it's not as mean.
Yeah, it makes sense, man. I think social workers shouldn't really go by that. Like, we know there's rules here, but you shouldn't read everything by the book. Like, have a little bit of, I don't know if the word's empathy right now, like understanding, and try and like, because obviously you're human as well, and we're human. Like, we all go through things. Some people may not be able to handle it. Like, we ain't all got the answer. You get me? So try and be more understanding, and like, if that was your family member, how would you go about things, if you get what I'm saying? Rather than everything by the book.
I think most of it comes down to just language and just the way it's worded, because you can still get the same answers, you just have to take a different route to it.
I was going to ask Superwoman, because I think what we've heard is that it's non-judgmental. There is, I don't have to go through my history again and again. I don't need a list of what's wrong with me, but maybe sometimes what's right with me as well. But I think sometimes we want them to know. We want them to know the problem. I know we was talking the other day, Superwoman, about there's still some respect in listening to someone's story. Because I think as we learn this approach at the beginning, it's almost like we become, oh, I don't want to hear about the problem. Let's move on straight away. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts about sharing your history and past with people? Is it important?
Yeah, that did become an issue for me, because the reason we first became involved, well, one of the reasons, but with professional help, there was something quite traumatic that happened in our family, and we had a psychologist visit the next day, and I was incredibly, it was very traumatic for me. And I got told straight up that, we don't want to talk about what's happened. We just want to talk about the future. But I needed to talk about what had happened the night before because of the trauma that was involved. And because that was stopped, it's never been resolved, and yeah, it's still there. So I think I love the solution focused approach, and we use it a lot, and I use it not just in my home but in the community. But I think there's a danger in being really purist about it, because that brings a lot of judgment, and yeah, it's incredibly difficult. I think when you're working with clients, it's good to remember it's incredibly difficult to open your heart to somebody who you don't know, who you don't trust. And if you've had other people who have not treated your family in a respectful way, or who have been really judgmental, it takes a lot. And I opened up because I was desperate. I was absolutely desperate and was going to lose a child. Physically, he was close to suicide. And to be told not to talk about the trauma of that it was about the future, is incredibly difficult. So I think as with everything, there's balance. It's about thinking, okay, I'm here you're obviously in our lives for a reason. You're not in our lives because everything's honky-dory and everything's going well. You're there because there are issues. And I think sometimes talking about the issues and the problems reveals what's underneath, and the solutions can be found. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it right now, but I'm actually a lot of my friends call me the Queen of Hope. And because I am, I see a lot of hope in a lot of stuff. But that doesn't mean that the problems shouldn't be talked about. What's the issue? Okay, how do we move forward in this? And what's the best for your family? I have been told, gosh, by a psychologist, several times, gosh, I'd be horrified if my children did that, or my children would never do that, or we've been working with you for this amount of time and nothing's changed, so therefore the problem's ours and the problem's mine. And it's only through the involvement in the parent workshops, and we do one-on-one work with Jo as well, it's only through that I'm beginning to see that actually I'm not a bad person, that actually the stuff that the professionals have told me that are my problem and my fault are wrong. So I think you just need to be careful, with that,
Does any other parents want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with the lady. Like, problems don't just occur overnight, and like family-based solutions actually work on problems. Even though I'm reiterating what everyone's saying, like they actually work on the problem, which, like, because I grew up in care, so I understand, like, the social workers just like to get the problem solved instead of working on the problem. But you can't just, if you fall off of a bike, you don't just get up and ride. You have to dust yourself off, so you have to assess the problem first, and then see if you got any scratches or any bruises, and then you continue on your way, innit? So it's just a way of life sort of thing. Like, sorry, I'm rambling on a bit, but I'm just like, everything's a pattern, isn't it? You don't count to 100 without skipping and skip 54 and 58, and you have to count every number. So, like, we don't skip things now. That's the way we're gonna have to start working. Don't skip out things like, oh, don't worry about the problem. Let's just get it moving. We've got a goal, and then the problem's still in the person's head, or the young person's head, or the parent's head. If you get what I'm saying. So Yeah.
Oh, Tony, I've got to start being really nice to you now. Catherine or Black Widow, would you like to add to anything?
Well, when I came to see you that first time, our very first meeting, I came to you with one problem, which was my son being quite abusive towards me. But you read between the lines and you saw that actually there was a much bigger problem that I was too embarrassed to tell you, and that was the fact that we'd been abused quite badly by my husband for many years. And this isn't bigging up family-based solutions, this is in general, that the solution-focused approach has not just let us work on the problem I came to you with, but it's let us work on all the problems as a family. Because the problem I came to you with was like a byproduct of the bigger issues we were having. And it's allowed all of us to slowly move on and to heal and to move forward. Because one problem quite often leads to another problem. But the solution of focus approach allows everything to move forward.
And it's not always brief, guys, is it?
Nope, 4 years later, and we're still going.
Yeah. So I think I think what we love about the approach is it is flexible. And listening to someone's problem is just respectful. If that's what they want to talk about, then that's what we need to allow. And I guess at some point, what we'd hope as solution focused practitioners, I guess, is that you guys make those realizations and make the changes for yourselves. Otherwise, it just becomes offloading. You know what I mean? We just meet every week, we offload, but nothing really changes. So when did you guys start to realize that we weren't the experts and you had to do it? It was kind of your move. Yeah.
First workshop. The very first workshop. And I think this approach is incredibly empowering, because here I had people who I saw as the professionals and knew everything were telling me that actually you've got this in you, you're doing really well. You know, let's build on what you're doing. And I started to realize that I wasn't a total failure and that I could do it. And once I started to realize that, things started changing in our home. And that's, I can't even begin to describe how empowering that is, to be told that, yes, you can do it and you've got the answers in you. We'll support you to find the answers and to do it, but you've got this. Yeah. Someone else talk now.
When did you realize that, oh God, I'm going to have to do it myself?
I don't know. When I started noticing different small changes, I think at the beginning, it was really small things like, I don't know, being able to actually come up to the office and actually come to the meetings to meet you guys rather than having to be rescued from somewhere because I was too scared. But then it kind of changed to feeling a bit more positive about meeting the children in the contact centre, to having the confidence to, not confidence, but having the belief that I was going to get them home, and obviously then getting them home. And now obviously it's a case of just building on that over however many more years before they decide to move out.
Hey, after all that hard work to get them back home, let's not wish them to be 16 just yet.
Oh no, there's loads of time.
Yeah, we've still got loads of time. But what different? Sorry, Gonda.
No, I was just going to say, again, that those small steps is we all have an outcome that we want to achieve, but we're looking at breaking that down into manageable steps. I guess that's what the scaling is all about. Was there ever a time? Sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say that I think that I went from finding family-based solutions, learning about a solution-focused approach, but it took me a while. So I think I went through a phase of ringing Aish continuously, saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. And she'd guide me and point me in the right direction. But then I think I moved on to not wanting to hassle her all the time and take up her time. So then I'd be thinking, what would Aish do if I rang her and I asked her, what would Aish's response be? So I started thinking like that and working my way through it like that. And now I don't even think about Aish when I'm trying to. but now I just
You
think,
raise the children and then they leave and they don't even look back.
now I just think, okay, this is a 3. How do I get to a 9, or a 10? And I try and work
text you now.
and I point you back at your sayings and your writing.
Yeah. So what's happened now is, guys, that the parents have all become either email friends or they meet up for a coffee. So they have these discussions. God knows what they say about Joe and I. And they've got this peer support group. Even if it's, hi, you haven't been on Facebook, are you okay?
Yeah. But you see, when I first came to family-based solutions, because of the abuse that we'd been through, I had no faith in my own decisions. I had no trust or belief in myself. And gradually, what the solution-focused approach has done, by seeing the small changes that have happened over the years, I now do have a lot more faith in myself and my decisions. And she's always still going to get the occasional phone call from me where I'm panicking, but they're becoming a lot less because I trust myself more. But there's still progress to be made. So
that goes for everyone, Kirsty, even as practitioners. Is there any questions from our audience?
Well, I was just going to say, if anyone wants to ask any questions or make any comments, now is the time, because we've only got a few minutes to go. Laura, do you want to just say it? No, okay. What difference? I love Laura, by the way. Those of you that haven't met Laura, she's true to herself, a fantastic person that does brilliant work. What difference has it made to you to have a network of other parents who understand to point that mirror back at you and say, you know the answer?
sorry, Catherine.
I think that's the answer, Laura.
Yeah, it's nice in a really weird way. It's, for me personally, it's something that I've never ever had. Literally never. I have never had other parents as friends who I could talk to or could call upon, text at random times of day or night and get a blunt response like I can get, which is literally, look on your own website. You've got the answers there.
Read your own blogs.
Yeah. But sometimes even just something as simple as that is actually all I need, is just to know someone else is awake and things. That's literally all you need.
What I found with clients who have been referred to us who've experienced domestic abuse is that they often say sorry at the end of each sentence.
Oh dear.
Sorry over there. And everyone knows who they are. So I asked Catherine to write a blog on sorry, and it's a fantastic blog. Please do look it up. It's a brilliant blog. But even though I don't do too much reading, I do religiously read the blog. So then when Catherine does say something, make a comment or say she's feeling down, I start quoting from her blogs, and then I stop halfway and then she'll be able to finish the sentence. And just that realization of, because it's her own voice. I'm just repeating back what she's said. So thanks to Catherine, I have to read. over and over again so I can memorize. So I think if this happens, I know what I'm going to come back at her with. And then after I actually, you know, give that sentence and quote, I then go, haha, what are you going to say about that? Because that's your own voice. And she can't say anything.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah, but I'm not going to repeat what you say here. And it is seeing for us, the solution focused approach mainly is helping people find who they are, find themselves. Understanding who they are is so important before they can then start supporting their family. So, you know, using the scars for oneself. Who am I as a person? What is it I like about myself? And what difference does that make to me and the people around me? What are my qualities? What are my strengths? That's where we tend to start from, rather than looking at the referral form to see why this person has been referred. What do you guys think about that? I mean, would you agree, or
I
how
think
that works?
identity is huge, and I think that's something that, again, with the parent workshops and with working with Joe, because we do, even though we're in New Zealand, we do once a fortnight Zoom sessions with Joe. And I'm starting to realise, I realised I needed my identity back. I felt I didn't really have one. I was just Nana. And that's really huge, because the more I discover who I am and what makes me tick and what I need to function well, the more healed my family becomes. Does that make sense? The more I'm able to start the day thinking, gosh, how do I want to be at the end of this day? So therefore, what do I need to do to be in that position? You know, and that makes a huge difference to your day, absolutely huge. When I wake up and I think, when I go to bed tonight, I want to be proud of the way I've managed situations. I mean, there's always going to be issues because of the kind of child I have, but proud of the way I've handled it, that everyone's gone to bed feeling happy and loved, and that they're wanted, you know. So what do I need to do that? And I'm only able to do that now because my identity is starting to come back. Yeah.
And I really want to thank you guys for joining us today. Sorry, Tony, did you want to say something?
No, I was listening.
You didn't want to say how fantastic I am or anything like that?
No, I'm just, sorry, I was reading the comment.
Because it is very brave and courageous that you guys have volunteered to kind of do this today. But I just want to ask those of you who are kind of listening is to maybe say one or two sentences about what you're grateful for, because although we haven't delved into what brought them to family-based solutions and the solution-focused approach, it's quite difficult for parents to kind of talk about their own personal lives. So if we could all just take a moment to say thank you, either in the chat or you can unmute yourselves, and what you're grateful for. Are you trying to unmute, Catherine? With a C. Oh, I thought you were going like that because you were trying to unmute and you couldn't.
I'm typing.
Oh, sorry. Laura said, yes, I totally lost my identity when I became a parent, and SF really helped me find myself amongst all the change and past trauma that came to the surface. Getting to know me was a very first step forward. I mean, I did moan to Steve a lot. Yeah, and so we all should. In between best hopes and what's been betters. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it is really, really important. And Carla agrees. Anyone else that wants to kind of give a comment to the parents that are here before we say au revoir? Go on, Catherine.
Thank you. I took some notes today about how to, from things that you've all said about that I hope will make my kind of solution focused practice better. So thank you.
Yes, I'd also like to say thank you to everybody. I haven't shared your experiences, but I've been really touched by what you've said. And the lesson that I've taken is to avoid being solution forced. A few of you have been talking about, you know, rushing too quickly to that. And thank you for that reminder.
And you're getting a lot of thank you, guys. But we have actually come to the end. Thank you so much for those of you who are joining us. And thank you all guys so much. We've got to go because we've got to go back in. But you guys are amazing. You've made a huge difference. And I'm glad that people joined and they learned something from it, and people can go back and watch it later on.